Welcome back to Advisor Marketing Explained, where we dive into the world of financial advisor marketing, sharing insights, tips, and actionable strategies to help you grow your brand and business. Today, we have the pleasure of being joined by Joe Conroy, a certified financial planner and the owner of Hartford Retirement Planners based in the town of Bel Air, Maryland. Joe's been named to the Investment News 40 Under 40 list, and he's authored the insightful book, Decades and Decisions. He is not only a seasoned financial professional, but also has an intriguing marketing background. I believe that Joe epitomizes the blend of authenticity and strategy that defines successful modern branding. Today, we dive into his mindset towards social media, his journey in creating relatable content, and the secrets behind his fast-growing online presence. How are we doing today, Joe?
We're good. Life's good here in beautiful Bel Air.
So just to reiterate, Joe, I'm fascinated to talk to you today. I've been following you on social media for a little while, specifically LinkedIn. And I think what you're doing as far as your marketing is fascinating. I think it's a good lesson to people. We'll get into a few questions here, but I really just want to stress, if you're listening now, go to LinkedIn, search for Joe Conroy, connect with him, follow him, look at the stuff he's doing. I think what it's going to do is it's going to give you a different perspective on how maybe to use marketing on your social media. And hopefully you get some ideas in the things he's doing and how you can maybe, and we'll talk about this a little bit, be a little more relatable to the clients that you're trying to sell to. So to start, Joe, can you provide some insight into your mindset towards social media? And, did you have a certain moment maybe that really got you started?
Yeah. So I remember exactly what really was that aha moment, I guess, if you want to call it that. So I was working on writing this book, and I wasn't really sharing it publicly because I was so afraid of being one of those people who is writing a book but never actually writes the book. It's always working on it and all that. So I kind of kept it quiet. But then once I finished the rough draft and we were just kind of going through the editing process, I thought, oh, geez, like if I write a book and nobody knows of it, then what's the purpose? Like the tree falling in the woods with no one around to hear it, doesn't make it sound. So I thought I got to make up some lost time and I got to market this thing. And I'm like, how do I market this thing? I don't want to do, radio or the old school, TV or anything. It really wouldn't make sense for what I was looking to do. So I thought social media, it's free except for time. So nothing's ever really free, but I thought it was the most accessible way to spread the message in the book and get people aware of it and market it. So the aha moment came when I did a public speaking event. It was for like first responders. I think there were 80 people in the room. I got up and I talked about like a little retirement kind of 101, just a brief thing. And it took a few hours of coordinating, travel time, getting there, coming back, all that. Not a big deal. But then Mike Crumley in my office, we were sitting around just kind of going through some ideas. And, I don't know if it was him or me, but someone said, video. Like we keep hearing about video, we should do video. We posted a video. It was terrible. I think it looked like a hostage negotiation video, like I was being held against my will and it was bright like this. Now the video production person in me wouldn't let that fly, but we didn't know anything back then. And that's what we did. And we got 400 views. So what clicked was I just spent hours traveling, getting to people who may or may not be paying attention. And I had 80 people in the room. In 30 minutes, I did a quick video, albeit not a very good one, and I had 400 views. I'm like, I can reach so many more people. I'm not like saying anything groundbreaking, but I'm like, the internet is where it's at. You can just scale your reach so much better that way. So then I thought I got to figure out how to do this online thing. And I started from scratch. It wasn't, I just kind of learned as I went. But that was the moment where I realized there's a lot of people looking at screens. I need to be on those screens as much as I can.
So something you said that resonates with me a little bit is that you made your first video. And I can imagine you've made over 500 videos. I'm sure the 500th was much better than the first, right?
Yeah. But there's still, I'm not saying that they're great, they're good enough. I feel, proud enough of them, but I'm not a TV personality. I'm a financial advisor and I'm a practice owner. So I think we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace. And the other thing, if anyone's considering doing video, and you don't have to, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. I think finding something you like is most important. But if you want to try video, I would say record 3, 4, 5 videos and just put them on a shelf. Never post them. It takes the pressure off, and it's practice, right? For financial advisors, I'm sure if you look back to the first couple of meetings you had when you were on your own as a financial advisor, they looked a lot different than what you do now with clients if you've been doing this for a few years. Marketing, video, all that stuff's the same way. You got to start somewhere, and then you just kind of pick up little things here and there. Maybe the audio isn't very good, so you find a microphone that makes it sound better. You realize, hand motions and maybe some facial expressions are helpful. You don't want to be standing here like, somebody's holding you against your will as you make this video. And the other thing that's very difficult about video specifically is if anybody's recorded their own voicemail and then you listen back on it and you're like, oh gosh, that's what I sound like, and you do it a few times. Video can be like that, but I got over that because I said, you know what, that is what my voice sounds like. And this is what I look like on video. This is what people I talk to every day say. And they don't complain too much, at least not to my face. So it is what it is. Just get comfortable with it and have fun with it, and keep doing it. That's the important part.
So Joe just shared some really interesting thoughts on mindset. So if you're listening, there's such an imposter syndrome with marketing. There's barrier to entry. And a lot of times it's confidence. It's fear. It's like, what do I sound like? What do I look like?
Right.
And it's mindset. It's just, you got to get over some of these things. You got to put out there in the world, and you have to reason with yourself. Like you just made the reference to like a voicemail, right? Like
Right.
that's your voice. Like you can't, that's what you sound like. That nothing's going to change when you're going to meet with your clients. That's going to be your voice, right? When you're going to do annual meetings, that's going to be your voice. So, take that into account. Your marketing should be, you should sound like you. And I think that's a great segue. I think one of the things that you do, Joe, uniquely well with all the marketing you're doing is you humanize yourself. It's likable content. It's people trust you from watching the content. And it's not always strictly hard line financial information. It can be just anything that's going on around your office or in your life, or personal things that you share. I want to ask, how do you manage to create content that makes your audience feel like they can know you and understand you personally?
One thing is, and it's probably not the best for everybody, but I make it all myself. Funny enough, when I was growing up, I always liked videos, the sketches and like Saturday Night Live and little things like that. So I don't know, middle school, high school, you have one of those like old school camcorders, and me and friends in the neighborhood, we would make like little funny sketches. So I think I always had that little creative hidden somewhere. And I think that's tough for a lot of financial advisors, because a lot of financial advisors just want to surround themselves with like spreadsheets and graphs and charts and trading data. But I think what's important is that you do have some true version of yourself. And I think, while it might be painful at the start, it's only going to make things easier for you going forward. Because if you sound a certain way online and then someone comes to meet with you and then you're totally different, that's not really building trust. And I don't want to call it a bait and switch. That sounds really negative, but it could feel that way to a potential client. So we try to be real, put a very realistic version. At the end of the day, we're all human. And every business, I don't care what business it is, it's all relationships. Actually talk for just a couple seconds before we started recording, and it's that marketing funnel of know, like, and trust. So the more consistent you are, you're putting things out there, people start to, okay, I've seen this name pop up a couple of times. You just need to be consistent with it. Then people start to maybe know or become aware of you. And then if you're being authentic and you're hopefully a good person and you really want what's best for people, it's natural for people to start to like, what they see and feel some kind of a connection, even if you haven't talked to anybody. You know, like if I were to run into Justin Timberlake at the grocery store, I've never talked to him before ever in my life. He's a huge celebrity, but he's such a familiar face. I feel like I'd probably kind of get an idea of what a conversation with him might look like, you know? On a much smaller scale, you know, there's a financial advisor who's putting out consistent content, being relatable, being real, just being yourself and authentic. And people will begin to know you, maybe like you, and then trust you. And then when that thing happens where they get an inheritance, or, hey, you know what, I got this notice in the mail, I finally need to do something with this account. Hopefully you're considered when they pick up that phone or type that email to start a conversation with an advisor.
Yeah, and so two things I want to add to that. So, you know, it's funny, Joe, we've never met before we just started recording a couple minutes ago, right? And I think getting back to what Joe said about the content he's putting out is that I've been following Joe for a little while, and I'll get into in a second kind of why and how I got started. But, you know, you're creating content that makes you relatable, likable, trustable. And so I feel like I know you, Joe. We've first conversation, but like I've seen enough of the things that you've posted and your understanding of kind of people's pain points with finance and different things. And I think that's an important message. So maybe when you sit down and you decide that I'm going to try to do some of this marketing. So if you're listening now, and we're talking a lot about video, but keep in mind, not everything has to be video. It can be a relatable image. It can be something in your office that you're doing with your team, and it's a photo, and it's a nice caption or piece of language that goes with it. Right? Don't feel like you have to jump into video right away. Joe, I know you do a lot of written and picture content that's really good as well, right? So don't always think this is a lesson and get right into video, right? There's other things you can do, but remember, hit those three pillars. Is this going to help people to know who I am, what I do? Are they going to like me from this? And would they trust me enough to hire? So if you hit those three things, I think that's a key element that we can all look into. And that's really important. So next I want to get into, you know, kind of why Joe's here and how I got to start following Joe and really appreciate his content. So, you know, Joe, I guess it's a few years ago now, you decided to build a new office in Bel Air, in a historical section of Bel Air. I think it's a historical building as well. I'll let you speak to that a little bit. And this is where I really started to follow you, because what you were doing is, as you were going through this process of building this new office, you really documented almost everything you were doing, and you were sharing it on social media. So all the steps along the process, and it created a story where I started following. I log into LinkedIn and I stop and see, oh, that's Joe's there with his office, or oh, the parking lot just got finished, or whatever, right? And I thought that was really interesting, and I want you to talk about how that's been a marketing tool for you and kind of how you just rolled with that.
Yeah, to take it back a step further, I left a group where I was just one of a few advisors, and we branched off and created Hartford Retirement Planners. So we actually had a brand that wasn't complicated by having other independent advisors as like a co-op type thing. You know, how do you market 10 different advisors doing 10 different things? It's a very complicated message. So we really started highlighting through social media, building Hartford Retirement Planners, the business and the rebranding and all that. And then fast forward, I think a year and a half, 2 years later, we started doing the office. And it is no more complicated in my thought process than people like HGTV. You know, it's fun to see things being transformed. So let's show it. And, you know, there's a lot of charts and graphs that advisors might share. I don't know that that really resonates with our ideal client base, but everybody loves a good story of something being built. And we really wanted to highlight what it ties in with our brand. You know, we have a historic office, you're right. We're going to have a big party. Everyone's invited. So it'll be 100 years old next year. So we took that and then we doubled the size of it. And it's in the town of Bel Air. We checked the box on like the most complicated building process you could make. So, but we shared the good, the bad, the ugly. And of course, you know, as you go through a multi-year project like this, there's a lot that goes into it. And I felt really proud of what we were doing, and I wanted to share that. And people, I think, in some small way, were excited to kind of see it come to fruition. So sharing the story, people love stories. People love a good success story. People like rooting for people that they think are doing a good job and doing right by people, which I'm very confident we fit that category. So that was really why we shared The Office, and we thought it might be a great basis. It's also very visual, so you can see like a wall was built or a parking lot was paved. It's very visual, which is good for social media. If I just do like, here's what the market did last month charts, I don't know that that really connects with people the same way as we're building our lifelong dream of an office in our hometown on Main Street with the 4th of July parade route going past and all that. I think that's a little bit more relatable for folks.
Yeah, and I think what you realized as you did it, Joe, was that, hey, if you're posting enough and you take some risks sometimes with the things you post, you see where the engagement goes, right?
Right.
So hey, if I post this picture of this new wall that went up my office and it's getting significant engagement, people are following, commenting, liking what we're posting.
Right.
It reinforces, hey, this is interesting to a lot of people that are following me. I can keep doing it. And that's sometimes you just got to put your toe in the water and try and put some content out there and see what happens. And worst
I
cases,
think I think the biggest hurdle for anybody to start, if they aren't already sharing on social media, not just video, but pictures, it's weird. When you look at a picture somebody posts online, if it's just, I don't know, say they go hiking and it's a picture of the view. Is it more interesting, the picture of the view, or if it's a selfie where you see the person that climbed and then you got the view in the background? We would rather see who it is. People like to see who's posting and things like that. But it's so unnatural for us, like, a selfie, right? Like, who wants to see a picture of some 30-year-old dad of 3 on top of a, I don't want to say mountains, I'm not climbing mountains, but whatever it is, right? Whatever the view, whatever it is. So it's a little unnatural, but then you just kind of get over yourself, right? It's like the voicemail that I mentioned earlier. That's your voice. That's what your face looks like, and people want to connect. They want to know more about more people, especially when you're in one of the most trusted positions in an individual's life, right? When somebody works their entire career and they have the fruits of that labor all accumulated in one place, and they're looking for somebody they can entrust to look out for their best interests, to guide them through the unknown, and be there for them when things change, because they inevitably will. They really would like to get a sense of who that person is as a person. So with that being said, like, if you are a bad person, do not post on social media. Like, you want to hide yourself as much as possible. But if you're one of the good ones and you're just trying to do right by people and help others and, just be a good example, then post away. Like, if your intent is always good, people will see that, and I think that they'll really like rally around or support you through whatever it is that you're doing going forward.
and I think, Joe, we have to think about, why are people going on social media? Like, why are they on these platforms? Like, nobody's
Right.
logging on and be like, I haven't seen a market update report in a while, I got to go to Facebook.
Yeah.
Right? That's not why we're doing it. Right?
Right.
We're doing it it's a quick escape. It's, hey, my meeting's running too long. I'm going to jump on social media for a while, or, hey, I'm headed to bed and I'm going to just look at my phone for a second. We're there to see things that are going to give us those quick dopamine happiness hits, right?
Right.
Things that are interesting, that are engaging, that might make us laugh a little bit, might make us proud of something. So, when you're creating that content, like you just made a great point, like them seeing you. So you go on that hiking trip, and instead of taking the picture of the background, it's you with the nice view behind it. Again, like, what are people looking? They're trying to see like what you're doing. Right. So I think that's important, and it's understanding why they're on these platforms. And it doesn't matter if it's LinkedIn or TikTok, right? We're going there to get a quick escape, see things that make us happy. Not necessarily like the latest trends in the stock market.
Right. Marketing's a numbers game. I did learn this early on when I was at the original place where I started. I started as an assistant. I didn't have any clients. I did my licenses. And I went to the advisors, and they all kind of started in the whole life world, the majority of them. So they were selling whole life policies in like the 80s and the 90s. So this was 2000s, and I said, well, how do I get clients? Like, how do I build my own practice? And they're like, I don't really know how you do that these days, And these are like boomer aged guys who are not big social media people. But I thought, where are the eyeballs, right? Like, where's the lowest barrier of entry and where are the most people? And that is the internet, right? So I figured if it doesn't cost me anything but a little bit of time and maybe some embarrassment if I post a couple cringy things, which happens, that's okay. I'm gonna give it a shot. And it was kind of going against the grain where nobody was really like harsh or anything, but it was like, what are you posting a selfie? Kind of give you, everybody was good natured ribbing or whatever, but I kept doing it. And I think a lot of times you want to go against the herd. So fast forward to today, I think all financial advisors would agree that like they should be doing marketing, because at the end of the day, our businesses are leaky buckets. All right. Clients retire, they take money out. Hopefully they're living long, long lives, but they pass away. Not every time we have relationships with who the money goes to. So we have to fill that bucket every year. And we've been really highlighting that because the last several years, the market hasn't given us a lot of growth. I think, growth in the market kind of is makeup covering what might be, lack of inbound client activity for practices. So I think a lot of practices weren't growing these last few years because the market hasn't been growing either. But it's a numbers game. So the more that you can put out that more people see, you're not going to connect with everybody that wants to be a client, but the more connections you have out there, it just leads to more opportunities and more stuff. I was selected 40 under 40 by Investment News this last year, which was a reach goal for me. I always thought it would be great. I've been doing this since right out of college. I mean, I jumped right into the business. I loved it from the start. I was fortunate. But I don't think I would have gotten that if I wasn't posting as much as I was, because whatever I was doing wouldn't really be out there. And the group that I'm affiliated with, Private Advisor Group, they see enough of my stuff. They said, you know what, Joe would be a really good candidate for this. We're going to nominate you for 40 under 40. And I got it. It's not like I started this back in 2018, 2019 is probably when it started. I wasn't like, if I post once a day, every business day, I'll end up getting 40 by 40 in a couple of years. Like, you never know that. You just do it with the good faith and the abundance mindset that if I do enough good stuff, it'll produce something more down the road, right? Marketing is investing. Marketing's investing. It takes time. You don't just put a lump of money in the market and expect it to double a week later, right? So why would we as advisors expect to post a couple of things over a period of a few weeks? We don't get any phone calls from it. We give up on it. Well, that's not investing, right? And that's not marketing. So you have to be consistent with it. And then over time, it compounds, which I think most advisors understand the concept of compounding.
Joe, you mentioned, the last few years, obviously things have changed recently, being an advisor in a bad market and where marketing goes when that happens, right? And there's a lot of advisors, this, they just hide. They try to hide away a little bit. They turtle up and they go away.
Yeah.
And then there's marketing through that type of market. And what we found with a lot of advisors is, you always think of marketing as attaining or growing new business, cold business. One of the values of marketing through a situation like that is the amount of work you'll retain. And people forget that. And, there's research that shows that most people that leave their advisors, the reason they leave is because they don't hear from them enough. So your marketing, Joe, if one of your clients is following you on LinkedIn, think about this. They see you doing content. but they also see you in your office all the time. They see you
Right.
working. They see you commenting on what's happening. And I
Right.
think that that gets lost on a lot of people. And when we meet with clients to discuss marketing, one of the things we say is, hey, your marketing strategy is retention, referral, then new business in that order. Those are the
Right.
things we're focusing on. And that's what we truly believe most advisors should focus on in that order. Because it's
For
easy to
clients,
retain and bring on referrals
yeah.
every
So
single time.
we try to get as many clients connected socially as we can. Facebook's pretty big. We get, and I would have thought when I started all this, if you would have made me guess, I would have thought it would resonate with the younger, right? The 30s, the 40s, maybe aged people. It's actually been the opposite. It's been a lot of the 60s plus really appreciate an extra layer of communication. So it is in addition to, right? You can't ignore clients and then just like post on Facebook and think that everything's great, right? It's got to be something that enhances the communication you're already having. But one thing that we do with existing clients, and we really started this in COVID, when you couldn't be belly to belly, across the table from a client, we were making videos of what was going on. And it wasn't predicting where things are going to go, right? It wasn't like, okay, market drop this, we expect by this time it'll be back. We didn't really want to make promises that we have a crystal ball that's as cloudy as everybody else. So we don't know exactly what the future is going to hold, but we have data. So we go through some history but at the end of the day, with clients, the feedback I was getting, and a lot of it was from the folks who have more money, usually in the 50s, 60s, 70s age range. They were so appreciative of these videos because what they saw was me calm and talking logically through things, addressing the emotional concerns because it was scary. I mean, it was just such a crazy time. One that I'm very glad is over, but it was very, uncertainty, right? But they would hear from him. And, all that news was doom and gloom, but like, here's Joe. And even if you watch just a couple minutes, my hair's not on fire. I'm not freaking out. Hey, we didn't expect this, but here we are. We'll get through it. That was the message. We'll get through this. We'll be fine. Right. And people really hung on to that. And there was a lot of other stuff to worry about, but, so people that were that kind of communication works best for people who are like, I'm not really that concerned about it, but it was nice to see you and just kind of reassure a little bit. I didn't need to call. I wasn't there, but of course, I got that little thing like, what's going on right now? Okay, here's a video. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought he'd say. It makes sense. Everything seems fine. So we've kept with that, and we do regular video emails that we send to people, and it might be housekeeping. Hey, it's 1099 season. Here's when you can expect to get your 1099s. If you haven't gotten it, call us. Great time to review things. Call us. It's an election year. I just did a video about how do we think about investing in election year, and I had data and facts. Funny story. I have one client, and the feedback that you get from these emails is really good because you get folks that I've worked with for 5, 10, sometimes 15 years. And one gentleman retired, and I love it when my clients feel comfortable enough to give me a hard time because that's like my brand of humor. And he just emailed me back. He's like, Joe, video was okay. He said, you need more like facts. So then I did a video update the month later, and it was it from Dragnet? Just the facts, ma'am. So I did like a video cutaway. He was the only one that mentioned it. It was just like a little nod to him, but it was great feedback. I'm like, well, if you want to see charts, let me talk you through it. And then we'll talk about the other stuff that's going on. But so it's just kind of funny, some of the feedback that you get from people, but it's almost all positive. And one thing I'll say is you're afraid of negative feedback, right? Everybody's afraid of negative feedback. I don't care who you are. I'm still afraid of negative feedback. You just have to get over it. But if these people are working with you, they are rooting for your success because they're trusting you with their success. So the fear that I put a video out there and someone's going to realize like, oh, I don't like Joe. Like he's not really my type of person or whatever. I think that's a little bit of an unfounded fear. They like you enough to work with you and they probably spend time with you already. And on the other side, you got prospects and you might be afraid that maybe they're not going to like me after they see a video of me. Well, if that's the case, they're never going to work with you anyway. That's not a good relationship. it self-selects out people without them coming in through an hour-long meeting and deciding they don't like you. And I don't think anyone's going to realize, like, I don't like Joe, but they might be like, his style might not be my style, or
Yeah.
who knows what. It's not like I don't like Joe's haircut, I'm not going to work with him. It's usually something way different that's not something that we lose sleep over.
Yeah. I think a lot of it just turning the noise down. You had mentioned some of the things you had put out. You mentioned the election. Obviously, we're coming up on an election year. Like, you're putting that information out proactively. You may, and think about this from an operational standpoint. You can cut maybe your phone calls in half, where clients are calling you in and they're concerned about some element of the election or something that's happened in the market. If you've already proactively put content out, you can save yourself time, because you're not fielding phone calls where they already saw the content you put out and they're like, well, I don't need to call Joe and bother him about that. He already filled me in. And I think that's another hidden element of this.
So we went through, when we were going through COVID, I got an email from somebody, deep 8-figure net worth, and out of the blue emailed me after all these, I don't know, 6-7 months of kind of COVID downturn and upswing emails. Just, here's how this stuff works. If you're interested, watch it. If not, you can delete the email. My feelings won't be hurt. He reached out. I said, Joe, I've learned more from you during all this than I have from my financial advisor that I had. So let's get together. And
Wow.
funny story, it didn't end up being a great person on a personal standpoint. He's phenomenal, family, like all that good stuff. Just not a very good stock-based investor. He invests in other things, and that's where we decided that he should focus his efforts. But there's so many more stories like that, but it's in my head, who's worth $25 million and looks at an email after a few months and says, I want to call you. Can you talk to me about this? The funny thing is, in that first meeting, I said, I don't know, maybe like you don't need a financial advisor and you shouldn't invest in the markets. He said, Joe, no, you're supposed to tell me why I need to work with you. And I was like, maybe you don't need a financial advisor. I'm actually a terrible salesperson because I give the milk away for free without selling the cow. But I'm a firm believer, and I'll save stories for maybe another time, but I got so many of them where you steer people in a better direction. It might not necessarily align with the way that you run your business, but it comes back to you, and people know that at the end of the day, you call Joe Conroy, I'm going to give you the advice that I feel is in your best interest, and that doesn't mean it's going to be business for Hartford Retirement Planners. If there's a good alignment, then yeah, like I'm really excited about going forward. But if it's not really a good fit, I'm totally free to tell you this is what I think you should be doing, and it's not really going to benefit me. Case in point, we had a client who came in, she's in her 70s, worked with banks. The banks are doing all kinds of goofy stuff, no interest, they're not giving her anything. And just based on this conversation, she's never invested in the market before. I don't think she's going to lose sleep. And at that age, I think the risk of market volatility and emotions is way too strong. I'm like, this doesn't do anything for me, but I think, you just be better off. And I gave her some different ideas of what to do. And I'm like, the last thing I want is to make a 70-something-year-old widow who's never been around the markets lose sleep in retirement. Like, it's not worth it for her. It's not worth it for anybody. So not everybody's going to be a good fit, but you know what? It's how many at-bats at the plate do you get? The more marketing you do, you get more at-bats. And the more people that you meet, you're going to get a lot more good clients that want to work with you, and you're excited to work together, build a relationship.
Joe, I want to talk a little bit with you here before we finish on some platforms and some different things you've done, and then maybe how that's evolved for you over time. So, you've been very active on YouTube. I've seen segments from you that you've created, like Minute to Win It. I know you've done a lot with TikTok, exported them from TikTok, and then been using them in, we're with the LPL network too as well. So we know there's compliance things that you need to do, but you've been creative in like how you can use different elements of marketing and creating media. And I think now you even have your own podcast, which you started. You've been doing this since COVID started and even pre-COVID a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about how it's kind of evolved for you. Like
Yeah.
kind of where you started and like what you're doing now, what you kind of see as the future of what you'd like to do, how you perceive those things.
Don't overthink it. If anything, underthink it, if that's a thing,
That is
right?
now. That
Yeah,
is now.
underthink it. Post something. Look at what you find that's interesting, right? And then do your version of that. I don't know that there's many original thoughts left. But what is unique to you is you in the way, the way that you deliver something, the way that you talk. If I'm just getting started, I'm looking at let me review my notes from my last client review meeting. What questions they have? That immediately is a post I can write about. Hey, just got out of a meeting with a client. I had a question about this. I've heard it quite often. Here's how I think about it. Pop, 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 pop. And it might not be groundbreaking, right? Like, should I do a Roth or a traditional or whatever? But the way that you explain it is unique to you. And the more people hear your voice, whether it's through text or video or whatever, the more they get comfortable with your answers with it. So underthink it. And I think what a lot of people that want to get into content is just look at what you find interesting and then try different stuff out. That's your version of it. You already have so much content, you just don't realize it because you're not looking for it. Once you start looking for it, you're going to find it everywhere. You don't have to build an office. It's a very expensive piece of content, but it serves other purposes too. The other thing I would say is build something that you're proud of and share that. And don't share it when it's done. Share it while you're building it. Yeah, I could have waited until the office was done. I'd do one post, hey, we just moved, look at this office, this is great. And everyone's like, oh, cool, next. But if you watch the whole thing from the blueprints to the whole thing, I mean, everything. We put it all out there. By the time it was done, we had, I think, 130 people at our ribbon cutting. And it was a ribbon cutting party. I had like a bartender, I had live music. I mean, it was a celebration. Somebody told me a while ago, Joe, you got to celebrate the wins. Don't just get back on the treadmill and go to the next goal. Like, celebrate each one because it goes very quickly. So any chance I get to, celebrate something, I'm going to take it. But build something you're proud of and share that with people, and if you're really excited about that, that will get other people excited for you, So those are the two tips, share what you're building and share how you're helping. What questions are you answering for clients? How are you solving problems for people? At the end of the day, nobody really cares what the features are, right? What's the benefit they get from it? So how can you really communicate the benefits of whatever it is that you're talking about? Alpha, beta, all this stuff that us financial guys love to dig into and hopefully don't use too much in meetings, but probably do. Those are features that people don't care about. How many valves does each cylinder have in my car? I do know that because I'm a weird car guy, but most people don't. And what they do care about is, like, if I am merging into traffic, is this thing going to keep up with traffic? Yeah, it's got some pickup. All right, cool. The number of horsepower, all that stuff really isn't as relevant to people. I want to get to where I want to get comfortably, safely, and I don't want any surprises that could be avoided, and that's what we do as financial advisors, to just share that.
So key takeaway from all this, if we got nothing else, is that we have a working title for this episode, Underthink It with Joe Conroy.
Please do. I mean, this like idea of perfection gets in the way of so much progress, I mentioned we had a nicer day here in Maryland, and I got outside and I played catch with my son. And so we're tossing the ball back and forth, and like one little thing where I realized that, well, he's left-handed, so his right hand's in the glove. He didn't put his thumb through like the thumb loop. He had it kind of up and he couldn't clasp it, right? So I said, hey, that's all right. Like, now and is it easier? He's like, yeah. I said, look, this whole thing, and he cut me off because every once in a while he'll listen to what I say. Once in a while, not often. He said, yeah, practice makes improvement, right? Practice makes improvement, not practice makes perfect. Perfect isn't attainable. That doesn't really exist in the real world. All we can really hope for is just to be a little bit better, Each video over time gets a little bit better. Each post gets a little bit better. I sit down and I want to write something and I want to market my business. It's not going to be good at first. It's not. And be okay with that. But it'll get better. And then eventually, maybe it's pretty good. And, I don't know if we're there yet. I think it's pretty good. I'm sure it could be better, but it's a lot better than being quiet. Nobody would know who we are. We wouldn't have the size of business we do. I mean, the marketing feeds all of it. Marketing, if you've got the best factory in the world, or you're the best financial advisor in the world, but you're not putting materials or you're not getting new prospects to put through your system, what's the point? It's like having a Ferrari in the garage, but there's never gas in it. You're not going anywhere. So marketing really unlocks the doors to a lot of things. And the key is being uncomfortable at first and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So underthink it, get uncomfortable, and that's when the doors open up for the future.
That's your message from today. Hey, Joe, I really appreciate you being here, offering your insight. I think, again, if you're listening right now, go connect with Joe on LinkedIn, follow him, see what he's doing there. Visit Hartford Retirement Planners. Take a look at Joe's book, Decade in Decisions. Follow him on YouTube. Go stalk the heck out of his social media. Follow what he's doing. And like he mentioned, you can get some ideas from Joe. Put your own spin on it. It's your own secret sauce, right? But you're going to get some inspiration from what he's done, I think, for sure. And definitely track back through some of this stuff and see what he did with his office, because I think that's fascinating. And it's, as Joe mentioned, it's like watching a good episode of something on HGTV. So anyway, again, thanks for joining us. Subscribe to the podcast if you're watching on YouTube. Look for us at advisormarketingexplained.com for more, or make sure if you're looking for more marketing tips and strategies for financial advisors, visit oakenstonemarketing.com. Thanks again, Joe, for being here.
Alex, that was fun. Thanks so much. Appreciate the opportunity.